Hi everybody, Dr. Jay Brower here to talk to you about relational dialectic theory. One important note on relational dialectic theory, you'll remember that there was an additional reading assigned to go along with this theory from Baxter and Braithwaite. I'm going to confine my comments in this video and on relational dialectics theory to just the chapter in Weston Turner. Many of the ideas covered in the chapter are reinforced in their overview, Baxter and Braithwaite's overview in the assigned reading that is in addition to this. All right, so as an overview to relational dialectic theory, it is an approach to explaining ongoing tensions between contradictory relational impulses. And so to begin with, we have to think in a very careful way about what a dialectic is. So if we think in some ways that are not dialectic, for instance in a monologic way, we would say that contradictions in relational impulses are either or. Either we will be together or we will be separate, and there's no in between. A dualistic thinking would be the idea of contradictions as separate. So this togetherness versus apartness is separate from the relationship. But a dialectic says that contradictions are as both and. So we're both in this relationship and I experience a level of contradiction between togetherness and separateness. And so my goal is to try and figure out the best way to manage those contradictory impulses in the relationship between, say, togetherness and apartness or separateness. So some assumptions of relational dialectics theory. The first is that relationships are not linear. Individuals swing back and forth between contradictory desires rather than this idea that one moves from separateness to togetherness and then that togetherness just builds over time. In reality, we're constantly moving back and forth between contradictory desires. And this view of relationships in terms of, it views relationships in terms of their complexity, not with regard to their progress. So it's not as if we build over time from something like separateness towards a never-ending spectrum of togetherness, but rather that relationships are complex. They change and evolve over time, and that change and that timing is not about progress per se, but it is about their structural complexity. Second, relational life is characterized by change. As we have new experiences, new life events, and change in our relationships change. And so we can't think about them just in terms of progress, but have to include in that thinking about complexity and how we change and our relationships change over time. And two additional components to that are that contradiction is the fundamental fact of relational life, that no matter how much we might want to deny it, tensions are constant and ongoing, even in the very strongest relationships. And so the way we manage these dialectics in relationships is very important to relational life. And then fourth, communication is central to organizing and negotiating these relational contradictions. It gives communication a central role in thinking about relational life, about the role of talking through contradictory feelings in relationships as a way of growing and building relationships while also acknowledging their complexity and the reality that they'll change over time. Some concepts that go along with relational dialectic theory include totality. So this is the idea of interdependence with each other and contexts. And so the totality is speaking to the ways in which the people in a relationship, the evolution of a relationship, relies on the other person and in the context of that relationship. So it speaks to a totality of, if you will, factors. In addition to that is contradiction, the idea that dialectics result from the oppositions experienced in relationships. So when we experience a contradiction, it's ripe for the creation of that both and dialectic. Third, motion, that relationships change over time, that they grow, evolve, and that evolution is not necessarily always in a positive sense of they evolve in a positive way. It could also be they evolve in a negative way. And then fourth, praxis. Humans are rational decision makers. We engage in practical action, and that practical action helps us address the dialectical tensions that we experience in relationships. Some essential relational dialectics, and there are many of these you'll see on the next slide, but these are three primary relational dialectics. So the dialectic of autonomy and connection. This speaks to simultaneous desires to maintain independence and also to be intimate, to have an independent voice, an independent sense of self, but then also have a really felt and developed sense of closeness with another person. That is fundamental to this idea of dialectic. And this grows into conflicting desires to experience the comfort of stability while also the excitement of change. Those two things go hand in hand, and so speak to this dialectic character that connects autonomy and connection. And then third, second, openness and protection. Conflicting desires to both be open but to maintain a sense of privacy, to be open to self-disclosure, to reciprocal disclosure, but also to want to maintain a sense of private life, of a sense of I don't know if I'd necessarily call it secrecy, but of information that you hold just to yourself. And then third of these primary relational dialectics is novelty and predictability, conflicting desire to experience the comfort of stability and the excitement of change like openness and protection, but with different characteristics related to that stability and change. So the need for newness, but also predictability, to have a reduced sense of uncertainty about what to expect from the other person. And so you'll see on this next page an activity that I recommend trying. So to see the interactional dialectics on the left, and these represent a broad spectrum of relational dialectics that have been identified. So judgment versus acceptance, subordinate versus equal, group versus individual, and the context where they might be found. And you'll see on the right hand side those contexts could be a community group, it could be families slash step families. I added in there televised friendship to identify the experiences that we might see characteristically on sitcoms, because we know television and sitcoms are often different than everyday life, and then personal friendships that you might experience, and then in the workplace. So this can be a useful activity to think through where these dialectics might appear, and then to explain why.